We wrote this story a few years ago for the Cree communities to raise an awareness about this bird because it's called an endangered species. There's very few of them, but most of them that live in the world migrate through these communities. So we wanted to raise awareness. We wanted people to know that this very special bird was migrating through their communities. So we wrote this story about it. Are you ready? It's called A Year in the Life of a Red Knot. Ready. And at the beginning of a book, there's always credits and things like that. So we published it. You can see my name and Aurélie Bordeaux-Lemieux, who was the other author, and all the different organizations that were involved in it. And here we go. Somewhere on Southampton Island, northern Hudson's Bay, in June, a red knot on its nest. Crack! Honey, come and see the cutest chicks in Nunavut. Wonderful. By the way, Southampton Island is at the north end of Hudson's Bay. It's really far into the Arctic. Now you have to feed well to grow up. Look at all those delicious worms and bugs right here. You can see they're probing with those long beaks down into the water and the mud. Finally, late July arrives. Look how tall you are now. It's time for us to go south. Mommy's leaving today. With shorebirds in the north, often the parents start their migrations before the young. Eat up all those good bugs. You need it to grow up and be able to fly. Delicious baby birds. Who's that? That's a Jaeger. A Jaeger is a predator of baby birds. It's going to be rough for Rufus and his brother. But many days later, only one was left. His name is Rufus. Almost mid-August. Hurry up, it's time to fly away. He has a very nice calendar. He's got his backpack ready. Ready? Go! And off he goes, flying south. Flying south from Southampton Island near the end of where Hudson's Bay meets the Arctic Ocean in Nunavut. And he flies south to James Bay. And he lands on the James Bay coast of the Moose Cree First Nation. And there's all sorts of other birds there. Wow, there's so many friends here. Lots of different birds. Oh, what is that? Falcon. Falcon is a predator of shorebirds. And what shorebirds do when a falcon comes around is they fly off and they form a large evasive cloud. So it looks like a cloud of birds, but they're all moving sort of together. And it makes it very hard for the falcon to pick them off. And it makes it safer for them than if they all flew off in different directions. And off they're flying. Some fly across James Bay to get away from the falcon. It's a long way. It's more than 100 kilometers across the bay. And they're flying. Woof! Land on the other side. The threat is temporarily gone. I hope that he's gone far, far away. Oh, there's food there, clams. But look at this. There's people. This is the first time there's been people. And the people look like they have telescopes. Maybe they're looking at them. There they are. Look, some red knots. See any flags? See any flags? Rufus doesn't notice that people are watching them, but he notices antenna and a flag, a leg flag on his friend. Here's the flag, and look, there's a little antenna coming up from his back. He's wondering about, what's that about? Well, you're going to find out. When the bird with the transmitter is nearby, it's detected by the receiver here. He's putting up a radio receiver. Look at that. It's a tower with an antenna on it pointing off in different directions to capture the signal that these little transmitters are sending through the air when they fly near the receiver. Mid-September. It's time to leave. Flying south over the ocean. South America. After flying for nearly a week. Imagine not flying non-stop for a week. I'm starving. Mom didn't tell me that traveling is all about feeding. Notice that Rufus isn't the only type of bird there. There's a scarlet ibis there, and there's a sign. It's a special type of protected area. Rufus stays there a while, and then flying again and again. Wow, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. But where is the beach? Everybody thinks that Rio has the best beaches in the world. Too crowded beach for me. I didn't travel that much for this. Dogs. Doesn't look like a safe place. Ah, that's a much better place. Nossa, olha os pássaros. Some fishermen out there. But we have never time to stay for long. Keep moving. They cannot, because Rufus has to join other birds from all the Americas at Tierra del Fuego, at the southernmost point of Chile, the very tip of South America. And there's all sorts of birds that come there to spend some time over the winter. I don't want to bother you, but are you Moonbird? That's me. Moonbird is a famous and very old red knot. He has flown an equivalent of to the moon and nearly back. Imagine that. Oh, my hero. I'm not a hero. I'm just a simple flying knot. Already February, gotta leave with my friends. Rufus is on the move again, stopping on the coast of southern Brazil. And of course, he's heading north now, right? Ah, it's good to be back in sunny beaches. Time going by so quickly. Enough feeding time. Time to go home. Rufus looks great with his red feathers. Lot to pack for our 7,000 non-stop to Delaware Bay. Awesome. Hi. Delaware Bay Beach. Delaware Bay is very close to Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. on the Atlantic coast. I'm starving again. Yeah, I just did a 7,000 kilometer nonstop flight. Of course he's starving again. Wow, so many birds. Look, horseshoe crabs. Let's search for eggs. Yum. Horseshoe crab eggs are delicious, and horseshoe crabs come out of the ocean and lay millions and millions of eggs. Pow! Ouch! That's my leg. You put your wing in my eye. Is this the end? A rocket net was shot over the birds by scientists that are studying them and putting markers on them. Easy, bird. No one is going to hurt you. Rufus doesn't look, I think so. Banding, putting a band on its leg, weighing, measuring. Hey, I have bands like Moonbird, my hero. Here I come. New York City, James Bay, and Southampton Island, Nunavut. What a long trip. And he's back home. That's my story. I'm going to share with you an infographic that will explain a little bit about the real migration of this bird that our comic was based on. Whoops. I want you to see this well. So this is an infographic that we made to go along with our book. And Rufus is a great traveler. It's estimated that red knots, the Rufus red knot, travels in the course of 1 year over 30,000 kilometers. So it goes, they breed in this orange area up here. And this is in Nunavut, Northwest Territories. And they migrate to James Bay, where a lot of them will stop and feed. And they continue. And this is the place in the northern coast of Brazil and New Guinea and some of the other countries, Venezuela, they stop there. And they continue all the way down to the tip of South America here by Lomas. And they spend a few months there before they start their trip back like this, and that great nonstop flight to Delaware Bay. So it's an incredible story, and it's a story of one of the longest migrating birds on Earth. Not the longest is the Arctic tern, which also nests in some of the same areas that Rufus does, but its migration is more like 70,000 kilometers. And now I'll ask my friend Hillary. I know Hillary's prepared a few questions. I'll stop sharing the screen too.
Perfect. Hi there, Ted. Thank you so much. I was sitting at the edge of my seat listening to that story the whole time. I've read it by myself, but it's something different when you have someone else and a grandfather reading it to you as well. So that was really special. Thank you for that. So yeah, I have a few questions, and I think probably the kids and the parents who are watching this might have those questions too. So first, I was just wondering, so Rufus makes this amazingly long journey. I think you said 30,000 kilometers in a year, all the way from northern Canada, all the way down to the southern tip of South America. And that made me feel tired. And I'm just sitting here at home. So I'm wondering, do all birds make such a long journey each year?
No, Rufus is exceptional. There's a few species of shorebirds that also make very long flights like that, like the Hudsonian godwit is another one. And as I mentioned, the Arctic tern has an even longer migration. It goes from our Arctic down to the Antarctic, and it's about 70,000 kilometers. It's amazing. But basically, there are three different strategies that birds use for migration. There are some that are very long distance migrants. And Rufus, again, would be on the extreme. There's some that migrate as far as southern US, Mexico, northern South America, Caribbean islands. There's some that don't go very far. We call them short distance migrants. They might go down to southern Canada from northern Canada or into the United States. And then we have permanent residents that stay here all year round. They might do little migrations after they breed. They might fly a couple hundred kilometers, but they're still around. And these are birds like chickadees and blue jays and stuff like that we're very familiar with.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. That's really fascinating to hear. And now I look out my window and I hear every morning. I understand that birds are migrating back for spring right now. So I'm curious. I live in Ottawa. I know you live in Gatineau. What sorts of birds can kids who are living in these cities see on a day like today?
Great question. And this time of year, the spring is great because birds are singing more. So they're singing, and we can observe birds with our eyes and with our ears. In fact, I love listening to birds' songs. And just like the music, your favorite, Bruno Mars tune or whatever, birds all have distinctive songs and voices. So you can learn those, which is wonderful. So every morning I wake up and I hear cardinals and robins. Robins have been back for about a month now. Red-winged blackbirds have been back for a couple weeks now. The goldfinches are changing colors. The males become beautiful, bright yellow with a black forehead this time of the year. So there's a lot going on, and the Canada geese, of course, are migrating through, and they're on their way up to James Bay. Some of them stay around here, of course, but we notice the geese because they fly in these V formations that move through the sky, and they're very noisy. They talk a lot when they're flying. So there's a lot going on, and it's a very exciting time to be aware of the birds and to be keeping track of them.
It certainly is, yeah. And I love that you can even hear that just from your window. You don't even necessarily need to be outside. You could be in your backyard or still be very close to home, which is important right now. Ted, do you have a favorite bird song? And can you whistle or share that song with kids?
I can, sure. This is a question that always comes up. I have a couple. I'll do two. I'll do this one, which I'm going to squeeze it. Everybody knows these little squeeze toys. And I think we know that bird, right? Black-capped chickadee, mésange de tête noire. And I can make the sound as well. So I can do the whistle. And the other one I'll do is an owl, because people are fascinated by owls. And the owl I'll do is a barred owl, which is a common owl in the forests around Ottawa-Gatineau. And it sounds like this.
Wow. How many times have you had to practice that? You're an expert.
I was taught by a barred owl itself. I heard it and I didn't know what it was. I came out, tracked it down with a flashlight, and then it actually spent some time. And there's funny because you can call them and they'll call you back, and you can get very good at it that way. So owls calling owls is a bit of a specialty that I have.
That's very cool. You've been in conversation with an owl then.
Yes.
So Ted, I just have one last question. I'm wondering, as an expert birder for kids or their parents who may be watching you and hearing the story of Rufus the Red Knot, what are your tips for kids who might want to spot some of these migratory birds just in their backyard or when they're going on a neighborhood walk?
Okay, so one thing that I've always enjoyed doing is keeping a list of the different birds that I observe. So keeping track of them, and then you start building up, you can add more and things like that. And use your ears, use your eyes. And when I started birding, I didn't have the tools that are available now online to learn calls in advance. So I would track down a bird and see it. And then I would look it up in my bird book. This is the first bird book I got when I was 8 years old. It lost the front cover, but it's a wonderful bird book. And it's got pictures and descriptions and maps and everything. But the tools are so much better right now to learn. And there's a big community of people interested in birds. And what's so great about it is I go outside and it's like listening to the news. I hear the birds calling. I know what they are. I hear them talking to each other. And it's a wonderful feeling to sort of be aware of that. And as the migration progresses, every few days, I hear new birds coming through my area. And it's very, very exciting. It's something I look forward to. And I always look forward to every year of sort of seeing if I can observe more birds from my place than I did the last year, which is a fun little game. But yeah, have some tools. Binoculars are helpful, but they're not, at some point you should get binoculars. It's helpful, but that's not an essential thing. I'd say start off with just using your eyes, getting familiar with the patterns and the shapes and the crows and the robins and the Canada geese and the great blue herons, and then move on from there.
Great. Well, I can't wait to go out and do some bird watching in my neighborhood. And I know that you and the team have also written some very helpful blog posts on the Nature Canada website. And we have lots of different articles on there, and that Nature Canada shares on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. So if there's any kids out there watching, maybe you don't have phones, but tell your parents to follow Nature Canada. And I think you can see all of the photos and stories that Ted and the rest of our team are sharing. So anything else that you think we should add for our audience, Ted?
No, I'm thinking that our time is pretty much up there, but nature is a source of joy every day. And if you're feeling a little bit glum in that, open the window up, listen, step out into your yard, and you're suddenly aware that life goes on out there, and it's exciting, and it's the more you learn about that, the more exciting it is. So enjoy nature, especially in this tough moment.